Okay, we're on live. I'm gonna bring in Mr. Corey Jackson. Mr. Jackson, I'm getting ready to start the hearing, okay?
Okay.
We're on YouTube Live, just so you know, everything being said today is recorded for the public to hear. That's a requirement that the court does that, okay?
Okay.
There you go. Okay, we're on the record. This is the people versus Corey Jackson, calling cases D120255. Failure to vaccinate a dog for rabies or produce proof of vaccination against rabies. B120256. Failure to keep dog on owner's property. B120251. Harboring an unlicensed dog. B120252. Harboring an unlicensed dog. And B120254, failure to vaccinate dog for rabies or produce proof of vaccination against rabies. Set for an emergency hearing. Appearances?
Susie Rogers for the people, P82072. Alongside co-counsel, please state your name and P number.
Matthew Rosenthal, P84807.
And Dennis Whitey, P79560, appearing on behalf of Mr. Corey Jackson, who is appearing by way of Zoom. Mr. Jackson, please state your full name for the record.
Corey Jackson.
Your Honor, we're ready to proceed today. My client consents to participating by way of Zoom.
Okay, is that correct, Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. This is the people's motion, so start with people.
Thank you. Yep, and the people are ready to proceed, and I will call my first witness of Miss Coombs.
Okay. And Mr. Jackson, just so you know, it'd probably be best to put your device on mute at this time while other people are testifying.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can always communicate with your attorney if you need to. You can text them or call them in the middle of the hearing. I will stop the hearing if you need to communicate with him directly, okay?
Okay.
All right. And Ms. Cole, you've been admitted to the Zoom, the main hearing, because you are the first witness. And Prosecutor Rogers is going to start with you and ask you questions. And whenever you're ready, Prosecutor Rogers, you may begin.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Mrs. Coombs. It's Sydney Rogers, the city attorney. I spoke with you on the phone before. Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay, yes.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Dion Coombs.
Thank you. And as I've said before, when we talked on the phone, I know this is Zoom, so it's a little bit different, but this will be question and answer about what happened on the day in question in May of 2020.
Okay, yes.
Where do you reside?
1839 East Side Drive in Detroit.
Okay. And were you at home May 28th, 2020?
Yes.
And this Otter Drive address, is that in the city of Detroit?
Yes.
And when you're at home in the city of Detroit on May 28th, what happened that day?
It was my daughter's birthday and she wanted to go outside. So we were in the backyard, my daughter, my grandbaby, and my son. The baby was walking in the grass and my son was doing something in the yard and the dog was just barking. The dog always barks, so I never paid any attention. He barks all the time. So the next thing I know, my son said, the dog jumped the fence. So he's in like a makeshift cage. So I just figured he must have jumped that, and he usually jumping and be choking by his chain until they come get him. So a few minutes later, my son said, he jumped our yard. He's coming in our yard. He jumped the fence. So by the time I said, get in the house, the dog came charging. And he looked straight at my grandbaby. He was going straight for my grandbaby. So I jumped in front of her. He knocked me down. I had my hands out. He just started biting me all up. Seemed like forever, but I don't know how long it was. And then I remember the The dog finally got my grandbaby and he was dragging her off. And then her father came out and he hit him with his fist in the mouth, and that's how the dog let the baby go. And then I remember my husband coming out, he shot at the dog.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna slow you down just a little bit so we can fully understand what happened. So you
Okay.
said you were in your backyard with your
Yes.
granddaughter,
Yes.
and how old was your granddaughter at the time?
1 year and 2 months.
Okay. So the dog that came and jumped in your yard, where was that dog?
He lives next door. The
Okay,
corner
and
house.
then that house has a fence that separates your yard and the neighbor's yard?
Yes.
Okay, and so how is the dog able to get in your yard if he's behind a fence?
He jumped over it.
Okay, is he able to climb on anything or he can just jump over the fence?
In his makeshift cage, it was a dog house in there. And I think that's how he usually jumps on that and jumps over the fence, and that's
Okay,
how he did it.
what do you mean by makeshift cage?
They made him a cage inside their yard. So it's like a 4-corner cage where the dog was, and it had a house in it. And then it was our fences.
I see, okay, so the dog is able to go onto the dog house and then he kind of for the fence?
Yeah.
If
Yes.
you estimate, how tall is this fence?
Oh, shoot.
If you don't-
I have no idea.
Fine.
I don't know.
So can you describe what the dog looks like?
A pet bull? Was he grayish? I don't know. Grayish?
Okay. And did this dog live next door to you for a long period of time?
Yes, probably a little over a year.
Okay. And had you had issues with this dog in the past?
Well, he just not particularly. He would get out of the fence sometimes, and we would have to let them know that the dog was out.
Okay. And when the dog was out loose, did anything happen previously?
One time I was in my backyard and the dog got out and he went across the street and charged up to a man in his door. And then the mother got the dog. She would call him and he would come to her house. But yeah, a couple times, but nothing where we would just go in the house. Whenever he got out, we would go in the house.
If you can estimate, how many times would you say the dog was loose prior to this May 2020 incident?
Maybe 5.
Okay, so this was an ongoing problem for a year before the May 2020 incident.
Yes, and my husband would always call the owner of the home and tell him.
Okay. Going back to the May 2020 incident, after the dog was able to jump out of its fenced-in yard into your yard, what happened from there?
Say it again.
Once the dog was in your yard, when you were in your yard with your granddaughter, what happened from there?
He just came charging. He was barking and charging.
He came running at you and your
He
granddaughter?
came running from the side of my house. He came running and he just locked in on my grandbaby. And he knocked me down because I jumped in front of her.
Okay, so you're trying to protect your granddaughter
Yes,
and the dog knocked you over?
yes. And I think I knocked my son over because he was all scratched up. So I think I knocked him over. And yeah.
And when the dog knocked you over, did he bite you or attack you in any way?
Yeah, I had my arms up. So he just bit my arms and my hands. And yeah, blood was everywhere.
So you had injuries on your arms? It's on
Yeah,
your forearm?
My right arm and then my left finger.
Okay. And did you take any pictures of these injuries?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now and you'll see some photos.
Okay.
Excuse me, Judge. Are these marked exhibits or?
They will be, they're not marked yet.
Okay, these are proposed.
Thank you.
Madam Court Reporter,
Yes,
would you like them scanned to you?
I'm sorry.
Would you like the exhibit scanned to you or emailed to you?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, Mrs. Coombs, are you able to see that photo that I shared on the screen?
Yes,
Do you recognize that photo?
yes, that's my arm.
If you could please describe, what that photo is of.
That's after stitches, after I came back. That's the dog bite. It
Okay,
has been stitched.
and when was this photo taken?
That had to be the next day.
Okay, so this was the day after the incident occurred?
I do believe so.
Okay. And this photo depicts, injuries and that you had stitches on your arm also?
Yes,
Council, do you see the photo? People move for proposed exhibit 1 to be admitted into evidence.
And Your Honor, we don't object. If I could just board here, just one issue in the photo and just ask if the stitch is just the portion in the middle, the rest around it is like tape marks, I think.
Oh,
Is that correct? I just want to
no,
verify
go
that.
ahead, please ask her.
Ma'am, just a quick question. You actually have a stitch in the middle of that picture. I see that. The
Mhm.
markings around it, is that from the tape being torn off, the kind of remnants of the sticky part of the tape?
yes. But
Okay,
it's more
thank you.
stitches, it's more stitches on the same arm on the other side right there.
Okay, she'll get to that.
Longer.
Thank,
Okay.
no objection.
Okay, you'll be admitted.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Coombs, do you see this next photo on the screen?
Yes,
And can you please describe what that picture is of?
that's my finger on my left hand that has been all stitched up from the dog bite.
Okay, and you suffered this injury from the dog bite on the day in question?
Yes,
And do you recall how many stitches you had to get on your finger?
I think it was 19 on that finger.
Right. And do you recall when this photo was taken?
The day after, I do believe.
So is it fair to say that this photo accurately depicts the condition of your finger the day after the incident?
Yes,
People move to admit a proposed exhibit B.
No objection from defense.
I believe it would be 2. Give it 2.
Oh, I thought I started with A, but I can do number.
I don't know, I wrote down 1. Did you start with A or?
I wrote down A, but
Okay, we'll do A. I guess I should ask the court reporter. Martha, did we do A or we do 1?
You did 1 on the previous exhibit,
Let's
so
stick with-
2 would be good.
Okay,
okay.
we'll stick with numbers, so I would admit exhibit number 2.
And Mrs. Coombs, do you see the next photo that's on the screen?
yes.
And can you please describe what that picture is of?
That's the same hand. The stitches went all the way around the finger.
Okay. So in this injury, it's still part of the injuries you suffered from the dog in May of 2020.
Yes,
And this includes the 19 stitches that you got on your finger?
yes.
And do you recall when this photo was taken?
Day after.
And you would say it's fair to say that this accurately depicts the condition of your hand the day after the incident?
Yes,
Thank you. People move to admit exhibit 3 into evidence.
or the minute. Thank you.
Yeah, no objections, I'm sorry.
And then I have one final photo to show you, Mrs. Coombs. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
And can you please describe to me what that photo is of?
My right arm after being stitched from the dog bite.
And is this your other arm than the previous photo I showed you, exhibit 1?
Yes, that's the same arm. Yes.
Oh, it's the same arm. It's
It's
exhibit
the-
1?
Yes, same arm.
Okay. And do you recall how many stitches you got on this arm?
Oh, I think that one was a little less, maybe 17.
Okay. And are these injuries from the dog attack in May of 2020?
Yes,
And do you recall when this photo was taken?
the day after.
Okay. And it's fair to say this accurately depicts your injuries from the dog attack on May 28th, 2020?
Yes.
Thank you. People move to admit proposed exhibit 4.
No objections.
Okay, we'll be a minute.
Thank you. I have no more photos for you to look at. So going back to the incident and the day in question, the dog went directly for you and attacked you?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, it was going for the grandbaby and I jumped in front of it, so it attacked me.
I see. I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sure it's very hard to talk about this.
Mhm.
I'll try to be as brief as possible. So once the dog attacked you, what happened from there?
He knocked me down and started biting all of my arm. I had my arms out, so he was biting. And once he finally got to the baby, he was dragging the baby off. When the baby's father came out and hit him with his fist in the mouth. So that's what made him let the baby go. And then my husband came out and he was shooting at him. And he retrieved back on our side of the house. And I don't know if he jumped or I don't know what happened after that.
Okay, so once the dog left the property, what happened from there? Did you run or, if you recall?
I don't know. I think I was out of it by then. I know my daughter was out there. I don't know. It was a lot going on. I don't know. Nobody came out from them. I don't know. I just remember them nobody came from next door. I just remember them taking me in the house and calling 911.
Okay. And you obviously had to seek medical treatment after this?
Yes.
So can you estimate how many stitches in total you had to get after this incident?
Maybe 40.
I'm sorry to hear that. How are you doing now after everything?
Much better. I don't like dogs, but much better.
Good, I'm happy to hear that. After the incident on May 28th, 2020, and after you got medical treatment, did anything happen after that?
No.
Okay, did you have any other interactions with the dog?
No.
No. Okay. Nothing further. Thank you very much.
Morning, Ms. Coombs. My name is Dennis White. I just have a few questions for you, okay?
Okay.
I'm just gonna try to clarify some of the testimony on direct. This should be pretty
Okay.
brief. First off, how long have you lived next door to this dog?
I think they've been there maybe a year and a half or something.
Okay. And other than this dog incident, do you get along pretty well with your neighbor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi and
Okay.
bye. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so can you describe, is the dog's name Blue to your recollection, if you know?
I didn't know, but yeah, I found out after.
Okay. So when I refer to Blue, you'll know that means the dog, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and so can you describe how Blue was kept in the defendant, Mr. Jackson's backyard? You said there was a makeshift cage. What was that?
Right. So, they just built a gate, like a 4-wall gate inside their gate for him. And he put like covers on it because the dog barked all the time. So I guess he didn't want him to see. So he hung up covers so he wouldn't bark all the time, but he still barked. So he would usually have him on a chain in there. But most of the time he would get out when he wasn't there and he would leave him outside. When he would leave, when the dog's owner would leave, he would leave him outside and he'd be chained up, and that's usually when he got out.
Okay. And did it appear to you as the neighbor that he was actually trying to contain this dog Blue in his backyard?
Yeah.
For instance, he didn't leave it just running outside on Outer Drive or anything like that, correct?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Have you called the police or animal control prior to this incident regarding this dog?
No, I didn't.
And I believe your direct testimony was either you or a family member would call Mr. Jackson, who's your next door neighbor, if the dog got out, correct?
No, not him, the owner of the house. I didn't know him.
Okay. And was there a response when your family member called to try to get the dog back into the yard?
Most of the time, the mother who lived across the street next door to him would get the dog if it was out, if she was home.
Okay. So to your understanding, Mr. Jackson's mother lives next door to Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. So when there was a phone call made, there was an action taken to make sure that the dog was placed back in the yard. Is that correct?
Well, not call, but we would see her outside and tell her the dog was loose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you notified. Okay, thank you. And then you did say that there was a chain on this dog, Blue. Was that chain on him that day, to your recollection?
I don't know. I don't know.
When you first saw the dog in your yard, where was he? Was he already running towards you, or was he dangling over the fence, or what would you
When
remember?
I saw the dog, he was running towards us on my side of the house, coming from my side where the air conditioner is. He was running, just charging.
Okay, so you actually didn't see him come over the fence or prior to that, correct?
No, my 9-year-old saw him. My 10-year-old saw him jump over the fence.
Okay, and if I could just ask, what health system did you seek medical attention from?
Harper Hospital.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Nothing further.
Do you redirect?
Yeah, 1 second. Nothing further.
Okay, Ms. Combs, I will give you the option since you have testified already. If there's no objection from each side, either side. If you want to stay and hear the rest of the testimony in the main room, you can do so as long as you keep your device on mute and do not make any commentary. Okay?
Okay.
Do you want to stay in?
No.
Okay, so you can go ahead and log off.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, ready for the next witness?
How to log off. How you log off? Leave.
The people call our next witness, Tyler Coombs.
Whenever you're ready. Ms. Combs, go ahead and unmute your device. This is Judge Sabree.
Hello.
Hello, you've been brought into the main room so that, because you're next to testify. So you're going to be asked questions by the prosecutor and by the defense attorney, okay?
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Coombs. My name is Sydney Rogers. I'm the city attorney. I represent the city in this situation. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Can you please say your name for the record?
Tyler Coombs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for appearing today. I know this is a little different on Zoom, but this will be a question and answer format and about the incident that you were part of. Where do you reside?
1839 East Outer Drive.
Is that in the city of Detroit?
Yes,
And were you home on May 28th, 2020?
yes.
And what happened on that day in question?
At that moment, I had ran in the house after I took my daughter Piper outside with my mom and my sister. And then my little sister Taylor ran in the house as I was sitting on the couch with my significant other Philip, and she said the dog was outside. The dog jumped over the fence and was outside with my mom and my little brother and my daughter. So me and Philip ran outside, and when I got outside, I saw the dog on top of my mom, had his arm locked in on her arm. No, not his arm, I'm sorry. Had his mouth locked in on her arm. And she was trying, in the midst of trying to get the dog off her, she was trying to turn over on my daughter to protect my daughter, because he was going for my daughter. He was trying to get to her leg. And my daughter was on the ground, and she was just bleeding everywhere. It was blood everywhere. I watched the dog let go of my mom's arm and go for my daughter's thigh, where it ended up nicking her with its teeth. As I ran in to try to grab my daughter from the dog, I ended up falling on my stomach, grabbing my daughter from the dog. I tripped over something, or maybe I just fell. I'm not sure. I don't recall what I tripped over, if I tripped over myself moving so fast. But when I looked, Philip had ended up, I think, getting the dog's attention, and he swung at the dog, which ended up making the dog let go of grabbing my daughter, and it jumped backwards towards the fence of our house. And the dog was getting ready to charge at Philip, but my dad ended up coming outside and shooting at the dog, which distracted it, and it caused it to run away.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna kind of slow you down a little bit and ask about specific questions. You said that you fell and tripped when this happened, correct?
Yes,
And were you pregnant at the time?
yes, around 7 months pregnant.
Oh, really far along. And did you suffer any injuries as a result of this?
I went into preterm labor. They were trying to stop my labor, which they did successfully do, but I ended up having to get 2 steroid shots, just to protect my newborn daughter's, help her lungs develop and help her brain function develop more. I ended up staying in the hospital for 2 days.
Okay. And the preterm labor, that was a result of the trip in this incident?
Yes,
And so you sought medical attention after this happened?
yes.
Okay. And how are you doing now?
Now I'm completely fine. My daughter made it to full term. She's here 6 months now, so I'm completely fine. My leg was swollen from the fall too, so it's kind of hard to walk around and move for a little bit, but other than that, completely fine. My 2-year-old, well, she'll be 2 in a week. My 2-year-old, she's fine, but she has an underlying fear of dogs. At daycare, they have a tiny little dog, but she doesn't remember why, but she's scared of dogs. She kind of shies away from the dog if she sees a dog whenever she comes running right towards an adult.
And did you notice any fear with your daughter about dogs prior to this incident?
No, she was completely fine at the daycare. She used to play with the dog all the time and run around and chase it, but now it's a no-go for her.
Okay, and you noticed this change right after the incident?
Right when she went back, we were in quarantine, so they didn't start going back to daycare until September. And that's when I noticed it.
Okay. Just so the record is clear, your daughter Piper, that is Mrs. Coombs' granddaughter that was about a year and a half.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Ms. Rogers, the question.
Thank you. I just said, just to be clear for the record, that your daughter Piper is Mrs. Coombs' granddaughter that was about 1.5 years at the time, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Coombs, I'm gonna show you some photos in just 1 second. Are you able to see the image I put on the screen?
Yes.
And do you recognize that image?
Yes, that's my right knee from when I fell during the pregnancy.
Okay, so this shows your knee after you fell on May 28th?
Yes.
And where did you seek medical treatment for this?
I was at Hutzel Hospital in Detroit.
And can you please describe what your injury was to your knee?
Right there, that was just a scrape. A really deep scrape that ended up going to the white meat of my leg, my knee. And in the midst of that, my whole knee, including some of my thigh, ended up being very swollen to the point where I could barely walk.
And do you recall when this photo was taken?
This was after I got to the hospital, they ended up hooking me up to the monitors with my stomach and everything. This was taken after they made sure that I was strapped up to monitor the baby.
Okay, so is it fair to say that this photo is taken on the day in question?
Yes.
Okay, and is it fair to say that this photo accurately depicts the condition of your knee after the incident?
Yes.
People move to admit proposed exhibit number 5.
No objection, Your Honor.
And Ms. Coombs, do you see the next image that I put on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, and do you recognize that photo?
Yes, that's my right elbow.
Okay, and can you please describe the condition of your right elbow?
This is scratch marks from when I fell against the cement, reaching in trying to grab my daughter from the dog's grass.
Okay, and do you recall when this photo was taken?
Yes. After I got to the hospital.
Okay, so the same day of the injury.
Yes.
And does this photo accurately depict your injuries after the incident?
Yes.
All right, thank you. People move to admit proposed exhibit 6.
No objection.
Okay, it'll be admitted.
Thank you. Okay, and I have one final image to show you. Do you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, that's my right foot.
Okay, and can you describe the condition of your right foot?
When I tripped, I scratched my foot with as I was running to grab my daughter.
Okay, and did you need any stitches or anything on your foot?
I didn't need to get stitches. They just wrapped my foot out because they couldn't contain the bleeding.
Okay. And do you recall when this photo was taken?
Yes. After I got to the hospital.
Okay. And is it fair to say that this photo accurately depicts your injuries after the incident?
Yes.
Thank you. People move to admit proposed exhibit 7.
No objection.
Okay, it'll be admitted.
Thank you. to May 28th. When you came out, you saw the dog. Was the dog attacking your mother or your daughter at that time?
When I came outside, the dog had my mother's arm in its jaws locked onto her arm.
Okay. How was your mother able to get the dog off of her?
My significant other, he ran up to the dog and he swung at it, which made it release her, and it ended up going for my daughter. But he swung at it again, and that's when it finally moved back for me to grab her and my daughter and pull them into the house.
Okay. And did the dog bite or attack your daughter, Piper?
Yes, it didn't really get a chance to fully grasp on her leg, but it did nick her thigh with its teeth.
Okay. I apologize. I do have one more image to show you. Do you see the image that I put on the screen?
Yes.
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, that's my daughter's leg.
Okay, and can you describe what the photo shows?
The dog managed to get one of its teeth nicked into her thigh. That's just the mark that it left on her leg that my significant other ended up taking her to Children's Hospital.
And do you know if she can get any stitches or anything after this?
They didn't give her stitches. They did give her antibiotics and told us to just make sure she takes her antibiotics and to keep a Band-Aid on it during the day, but let it breathe during the night.
Okay. And is her leg healed now?
Yes, she just has a scar.
Well, at least it's healed. That's great. Do you recall when this photo was taken?
Yes, this was taken after I ended up going to the hospital.
Okay, so do you believe it was taken the same day as the incident or the next day?
Yes, this was taken the same day.
Okay. And is it fair to say that this photo accurately depicts the condition of your daughter's leg after the incident?
Yes.
Thank you. People move to admit proposed exhibit number 8.
No objection.
Okay. Go and get it. Thank you. That was the last photo I had to show you. So once you come out of the house and see what is going on, were you able to take your daughter from outside and bring her inside?
Yes. Once Philip distracted the dog enough to get the dog off my mom and my daughter, I grabbed both of them and dragged them in the house.
Okay. And what happened from there once you got your mom and daughter in the house?
My mom was bleeding, and I think I yelled at my sister to grab a towel to wrap her arm up. I ended up calling 911 along with my dad. I was on the phone with a 911 operator, explaining to her the situation and wrapping my mom's arm up, trying to stop her from bleeding so much. My daughter was screaming. She wouldn't calm down. I couldn't get her to calm down. And then I had finally realized, with all the adrenaline, I had finally started to realize that I was having really, really bad contractions. And in the end, I ended up having to go lay down on my back in my bedroom because the contractions got so painful.
Okay. And then did you end up seeking medical attention that day?
Yes.
If you can you describe the dog that attacked your mother and daughter?
It was a pit bull for sure. It was big and it was gray and white, I believe.
And prior to this day in May, had you had any other interaction with this dog before?
My dad has called me when I'm getting off work after picking my daughter up from daycare that, hey, the dog next door is loose. So call me when you're about to pull up at home so I can come outside and make sure you and Piper get in the house. That happened maybe 2 or 3 times before. But other than that, no physical interaction besides what happened on May 28th.
Okay, but there were at least 2 to 3 times that you had to change your behavior at your own home due to this dog.
Yes.
Okay. And had this dog ever been in your neighbor or in your yard before?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And after the May 28th date, had you seen the dog since?
No.
Nothing further. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Ms. Coombs.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Dennis Whitey. I represent Mr. Jackson, who is your neighbor in this case, okay?
Yes.
Just have a questions briefly to just clarify your testimony, okay?
Yes.
Okay. I know you stated you went into preterm labor. How long after the incident did you go into this preterm labor?
As I said before, I didn't realize that I was having contractions until after I got on the phone with 911. So I would say since I fell, it might have been immediately after, but I didn't realize it until maybe 10 to 15 minutes after I ended up on the phone with 911 and got my mom's arm situated and made sure my daughter was okay.
Okay, understand. And now, regarding the history with your neighbor's yard and this dog, I believe you stated there's been no other attacks prior to May 28th from the dog against any person of your family, correct?
As far as I'm aware of, no. It's just that the dog has been out roaming around freely through our neighborhood.
Okay, and when you look at, you can see Mr. Jackson's backyard from your house or your yard, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and there's some type of cage or pen in the back, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and is it fenced in on all 4 sides?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and I believe there's potentially something covering it to, I guess, insulate noise and, I guess, what appears to stop the dog from barking, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And also, he's also as a secondary measure on a chain normally, is that correct?
Yes, he was on the chain that day.
Okay, and prior to being alerted that the dog was in your yard, did you see the dog at all come over the fence?
I did not. My little sister and my little brother saw it first. My little sister ran in the house and said the dog got loose. And me and my boyfriend just ran outside.
Okay, understand. Thank you, nothing further. I appreciate it.
Yeah, very briefly. I had one brief question about, you said that the dog was wearing a chain on the day in question in May.
The dog was on a chain in its cage as he asked. It was in its 4 fence chain cage on a chain. But I went inside for a quick second after I brought my daughter outside to my mom, and I'm assuming it broke off the chain. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, and when the dog was in your yard, did it have a chain or a collar on?
No, it didn't have anything on.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
Nothing further from us.
Ms. Combs, you are all done testifying today, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Prosecutor.
Sure, yes. 1 second, Ms. Combs.
Okay.
Oh, nothing to do with this witness, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. So Ms. Combs, at this time, you have the option, you can either stay on and hear the rest of the testimony, as long as you're on mute and do not comment during the testimony, or you can go ahead and log off. It's your choice.
Okay, I'm going to log off.
Okay. You have a good
Thank
rest of your-
you.
Okay,
Yeah, at this time, defense would just request a brief recess. I'd like to speak to my client by phone regarding this case
okay,
and potential resolution, actually.
okay.
Mr. Jackson, I'm going to call you.
I'm
Okay.
going to stop the YouTube, live YouTube, and we're gonna take a moment for, Attorney White to speak to his client. Oh, you can post that. Oh, yeah. Are you closed or host? I need host. I'll get it right back. Or I'll just keep it until.